there. We got involved in a very seemingly complex the complex issue of Bina, which the more I think about it, the more I think it's not only it's not complex, but it's like the Herb Shita. But the idea that we're explaining is, just to go over this clearly, so to be clear, there is the higher spheros and the lower spheros. Again, let's not get nervous about the Kabbalah. It's just words. It's words that are explaining concepts. The spheros that we can see in action are the 7 spheros of the spheros. Omer, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. The spheros, as it's called in the Sfarim, the spheros ha-ne'elamois of the Bria, the kochos of the Bria, which we can't see, we can't even understand, are the higher spheros. The reason, or part of the reason that we can't understand the higher spheros, Pashup Pshat is that it's higher. It's higher. How can you understand? It's higher. It's higher than our ability to comprehend. But it's more than that, because I don't know, even though we use terms like higher and lower, I don't know if it's higher or lower. It's not a positioning issue. The real issue is that the world is the world of Pirud. David, you remember the bicycle? And then the higher spheros, or the higher worlds, before the world was created, it was the world of Echad. Doimel of Vlad. You take a Vlad, when a baby's in its embryonic stage, so it starts off as one thing. Before 4 or 5 weeks, even a sonogram can't tell the period of this. But this one thing will have eventually, God willing, hands and fingers and a nose, and it'll get all sorted out. And then you're born and you get more sorted out.
So you say.
That's the idea. So it's a mashal in real biological life of a gush becoming nifrad. It's hard to understand if you never saw. It's hard to understand how is all of this in one. That's the higher spheros. Bina is the nukva of the higher spheros. That's the rechem. That's the womb. So the mashal is meduyak. That's where it comes from. So it's hard to understand. What did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Ribono Shalom, explain to me, or show me, explain to me, the Gemara says, tzaddik v'raloi, which means, Rashi says, a tzaddik that has a miserable life. Explain to me how a tzaddik has a miserable life. It's not really the words. Tzaddik, mitzad echad, ra, mitzad sheni. What he doesn't understand really is the irvuv of tov v'ra. Tzaddik, you're living a pure life, you're living a wonderful life, you're living a life of mitzvahs, of holiness. What's Ra doing here? So explain to me tzaddik v'raloi. Explain to me rasha v'toivloi. Like, what is this mix? Isn't everything supposed to be sorted out? The answer is la yirani ha'adam v'chai. That as long as you're in this world alive, you're not going to understand this, because you only understand things which are already sorted out. What you need to do to understand this is to go up to the world of Bina. And in the world of Bina, Ra and Toiv is all equal. So you could have Tzaddik V'Raloi, you could have Rasha V'Toivloi. So as much as I said at the beginning, I'm beginning to understand. I don't understand it at all. It's not that I understand it. Moshe Rabbeinu could understand it. But what I'm understanding is that there's such a thing that we don't understand. What I'm understanding is the math. That there is such a metzius of an irvuv Toiv V'Ra. And since there's such a thing as irvuv toiv v'ra, we explained this is the pshat in the Zohar in Parshas Nasai, which says dahi tshuva dahi bina. The tshuva and bina is really the same thing. What's tshuva have to do with bina? Because tshuva, being that we always understand tshuva as a correctional type of an idea, behavioristic fix, tshuva. I had a bad habit. I spoke lashon hara. I ate treif. I killed people. Whatever it is that I'm into. And I did tshuva. I went through a lot of rehabilitation to be able to try to fix that, and I fixed it. And I'm clean. Tshuva. Are you really clean? Just as a muscle, somebody, a young woman, came to me yesterday and asked me about if I know about a certain person for a Shlit'a. So I didn't know too much about it. I see him here and there, but I didn't know too much about him. So I called somebody who does know him. So he's a wonderful guy, and just a wonderful guy, and learns Torah, and makes a living, and just a good guy, good mitos, So I said, but, what's his name? That's Marcus. There was a end of a sentence that I wasn't going to. So look, he's in a 12-step program. Okay. But I'm not the way, I'm certainly not judging anybody. That's a good thing that he's in a 12-step program. But then I always think to myself when somebody asks me about a Shlit'a, if this was my daughter, how would I feel? That's what I always ask myself because he's okay with a 12-step program. Okay, 12-step program. But how would you feel? I got to know. So and then the person I called added, but he's been clean for 16 years. So that's already. But so here's the interesting thing that I wanted to find out more information. So I called the guy himself, and he's telling me what he does, and he's wonderful, So he says, but you should know. I just to be for full transparency, I'm in a 12-step program, So I said, yeah, but does that from a long time ago? I already knew the answer. I was just trying to. So he said, no, I'm an addict. I'm an addict. I haven't done any drugs for 16 years, but I am an addict. So which is what people in the 12-step program. I said they're right, and they're right. They count the days. But the people have often compared that program, which is thank God, it's a wonderful program, to tshuva. And I think that tshuva is something different. I think tshuva is not a correction or a behavioristic change or even a coming to terms with or even fixing. Tshuva is a different thing. So in tshuva, you're going back to the place of bina where there is no tov and there is no ra, or it's all the same thing. And you're being kikot shenoilad again, coming from bina into this world. This is like the ness of tshuva. It's an unbelievable ness, and there's so many different components to it. But that's a whole different idea. I don't know how many people actually do tshuva. It's a tshuva of a complete rebirth, a complete restart, where, as Lashon Rambam, Eini oisei ha'ish. I'm not even the same person. Sha'avar saveras. Tshuva I can tell you one thing that in my experience, most Baalei tshuva don't do tshuva. Meaning, not criticizing them, we're saying that it's a cultural thing to be about tshuva. It's not and most from Jews that don't do tshuva. I mean, tshuva is a very deep idea of getting back to the place where it's at. This is the chat, by the way. This is an insight of Zdoinos Nasik Eschuyos, which is usually translated as your averas become like mitzvahs, which is weird. So it makes it a little bit easier to understand. Well, if you're going to a place where there's tzaddik v'raloi, there's a place where there's this irvuv of toiv v'ra. So once there's an irvuv of toiv v'ra, you could possibly understand that zdoinos nasik is chuyos. But let me say it even deeper, that zdoinos nasik is chuyos really doesn't mean, if you translate it properly, that your averas become like mitzvahs. It means that there's no difference between averas and mitzvahs in that high place. You heard of it? Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, like people say of heart, why is about tshuva better than a tzaddik? Welcome Shabbat Shuva. Why? Because I did so many averas and they all became mitzvahs. Like, you can't compete with me, Elias. If all my zenonos became schuyos, I've got millions of schuyos.
The Rav said that to understand the tshuva is like a reset. You go back to default. But then there shouldn't be anything. It should be neutral.
Exactly the point. Zedonos kischuyos means everything's neutral.
It's neutral.
It doesn't mean that your averas become mitzvahs. It means that Schuyos kizdoinos, doinos kischuyos, toy v'ra, tzadik v'rama.
Shouldn't that be bichlal?
That's what it
Go back
means.
to default.
There is no toy v'ra. Now what are you going to do with it? That's neutral. That's neutral. It's an irvuv of toy v'ra.
Adam Kadam Nachait.
Yeah.
So why is it that that's something that seems limited from the tzaddik versus the Baal Shuvah?
Why is it what? It seems like a tzaddik can't achieve it.
Just go straight to the place of where there's no tov of love.
Nothing. No, we can't. Tzaddik can do tshuva.
That's.
We're talking about tzaddik can do tshuva. We find that there's even a bechina. The Rambam says there's a bechina of tshuva where you don't even do an aver. Stop. Like what does a tzaddik do? Oh, Yom Kippur, take a nap. What's he doing? He's doing a different type of tshuva. This, by the way, is the pshat. I just thought we're covering a lot of things, but it's important to understand. This is the pshat in Tshuva Mi'ahava. A 12-step program is Tshuva Me'ira. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying that's what it is. It's here in the lower worlds. Tshuva Mi'ahava is getting to a restart place of complete neutrality and a mixture of toiv and ra. See, let me. Here's an interesting thing. Like, what are the words that we use the most in davening and in Judaism? Is lave. Lave. So, what's a lave? It's I always feel like to myself, this is like such a Yitzhahara, like probably the most important word in Yiddishkeit. Nobody really knows what it is or bothers with it. Like a lave, like what is it? Is it the seat of Bayregesh? Is it by ticker? Is it, the Gemara says, B'chol levavcha zu Yitzhahara v'Yitzhar Tov. That's my Yitzhahara and my Yitzhar Tov. V'ashevaisa levavecha. When you do tshuva, you go back to your lave. What are you going back to? Your Yitzhahara, Yitzhar Tov, or is it a different thing? David Amal Talibi Chalal B'kirbi. And we say the same libenu lahavin, lave lahavin, lave navain, says in Chumash in Parshas Tetzaveh, lave navain. So like the heart, you know, it's like shalom. It means hello. It means goodbye. You know, like what does it mean? So, like part of the answer, the confusion of this is that there's a difference between understanding it Talmudically and understanding it Kabbalistically. But I don't think there's real. I think that everybody means the same thing, and let me explain. That I'm going to say a sentence here. That a sentence which is backed by a bank account of about 25 years of thinking about this. That a lave is the Yetzirah and the Yetzirah Tov Kodem HaPirud, before it became that, where it was still an irvuv of Toiv Ra. And being that it was an irvuv of Toiv Ra, in the Pirud, as the world is created, so it becomes two forces sorted out. But when you're really in love, there's no forces, there's no analysis, there's no tov v'ra, like, whoa, I'm in love, you know. Like, so, you know, it's, you know, it was a point of obsession, there's no tov v'ra, nothing is an emotional point, there's no tov v'ra at an emotional point. People do crazy things emotional. They kill people at an emotional point, they love people at emotional. It's, you know, sidas chidam, avas chidam, like, but the lave is the same thing as the Yetzirah Yetzirah before it sorts itself out. So, chashuv yisod. So, give me a lave of which part of the seichel is attributed to the lave? Bina, lave navain, lave lahavin. That's why bina? Why not a lave chachma? Because chachma has nothing to do with lave. Lave has to do with bina. Bina is where is the womb of creation, where everything is mixed toiv v'ra.
It's interesting that the heart does two things at the same time. It pulls blood in and shoots blood out.
Mamish and irvu.
Yeah.
So very good. Okay. You know, I'm skipping around, but we'll get to the words inside for a second. But you know, like a baby's born. So in its embryonic stage, is not only, this is the Zohar's observation, not mine. Not only is it the parts of the body which are important, but also the parts of the body that it will shed. It has hair in there, in its DNA. It has fingernails, and stuff you have to wash nagelwasser from to get rid of klipa. Chitzonius, as the Zohar calls it. It's for chitzonius. Well, what's it doing in there? The answer is because in that Irvuv there is no Tovarah. There is no Tovarah. Everything is all one thing. Are you with me on this? So when we're talking about the lave, we say Vashivoisa Levavecha Tshuva Me'ava Hashevoisa El Levavecha, go all the way back to the place of Bina. The restart is where there are no Averas. I come from a place where there are no Averas, but just like there's no Averas, there's no mitzvahs, neutral, as you say. Am I willing to start fresh? Am I willing to even give up the good that I've done? Am I willing to start fresh? It's like a complete amnesty, in its literal sense of life, where I'm just ready to be a katan shenolad. Again, a ger also can do that. A ger sheniskayir can katan shenolad dami. It's a gewaldige thing. I used to be on a base in Geiris in Toronto, so every time somebody was Magayer, it was once a month, twice a month. I went from Buffalo to Toronto to be Magayer. Every time these were real serious Gary Tzedek, real, L'Shema Gerim. But Rabbi David Shochad was the head of the base that used to always ask the ger for a bracha. He says, because a baby you can't ask for a bracha, but at least the ger you can ask for a bracha. It's like a katan shenoila. Like here I have a talking, seichel to a baby. freshly born. Everybody sees the tahara of a baby, even though the baby can't be mafchin ben toiv l'ra.
That's the point. That's exactly the point.
That's tahara. If you want to understand tahara as opposed to kedusha, kedusha is in this world where you sort it out in kadosh, harei at nekudeshesli, adarabah. It's more of a pirud, which is good. But tahara is up here.
After Misa, we do tahara. After Misa, we do tahara.
Yeah, after we said before, life. You're going back to a state of Tara. Tara, a woman goes into the mikveh, she's not Kadosh, she's Tahira. It's a new start. So Tahara is that freshness of new, lo tov, lo ra. So Zadoinos Nasik is Schuyos. Schuyos Nasik is Zadoinos. I'm in a whole different place. So the lave, follow me here. I don't follow myself sometimes, so if you follow me, maybe you'll put me back on track. The lave is the place before the pirud in Bina, lave lahavin, and the lave is also, like the Gemara says, like this, that la'olam, Gemara brachos, something like that. La'olam yargiz adam yetzer hara v'yetzer hatov. Like get a machlokas going between your yetzer hara and your yetzer hatov. Like, should I drink this? Nah, yes, no, yes. It's good, it's good. It's not schizophrenic, it's good. Why? Because you're living in the world of pirud, you're living in the world of bira, so sort it all out. Figure out what's toiv, what's ra. But if you're going from an emotional point of view, if you're going from a point of view of lave, that's kodem pirud, you just drink the coffee, or just eat it, just take it, like the Mauritian. Let me just eat it. Just eat the thing. Just eat the thing, It was in a way, it was a naivete, if you will, of doing the chet. There's a naiveness of chet that comes with tara. So too much tara is not. You got to be careful with too much tara. Like if you keep a kid at an incubator, so then you have tara, but you don't have kedusha because nobody has to make the choices of tov v'ra. I often think here, like in a way. It's like the time of the Beis HaMikdash, like Beis HaMikdash. I don't know even the Bayis Sheni, the Bayis Rishon, like the Beis HaMikdash. The Shlit'a was there, the Arad was there, the Leviah were singing. And why was it destroyed? Because we did Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayis, and Shvichas Damim. Hello, how does that happen? Like I understand the Bronx, but you're talking about Yerushalayim, Shomala. Like where do you come to Gilei Arayis, Avodah Zarah, Shvichas Damim, Bikum Tozais? And the pshat is that sometimes you have tahara, but it takes away your bechira chavshus. That's not the derech of the world. You have to be part of the world in the grungy places sometimes to make these distinctions to be able to follow. So lave, this is the nakuda here. The lave is also, that's kodem pirud, is the seat of emotion, yes? Like the heart is the seat of emotion. That's another thing we know about lave. So why? Because emotion, like the whole idea of emotion, is my reaction before I sort it out, intellectually analyze it, and process it.
It's interesting that the baby before it's born has a hole in the heart, and then after it's born, when there's a pirud and they're able to feel something, the hole closes up. Hopefully, yeah.
I was thinking, like, a whole life we go through something. If a person starts crying, you say, "Don't cry, stop crying, don't cry." You know, like when the baby's born, like you're waiting for that cry.
Yeah, right.
You know, you want to hear that cry. You know, like, and you're measuring the seconds till, you know, the Apgar score until that cry. You go 1, 2, 3. It's going to be Koveya's intelligence. It's going to be Koveya her emotions. It's going to be Koveya everything. You want that cry. So, like, you know, so why when the kid is 4? Shut up. like Bakara over here. The answer is that now you're in the world of Pirud. You're in the world of Ispashta. Stop crying. Big girls don't cry. But when you're in the world of, when you're still a chelik of the world of Bina, so you want the cry. The cry is the first thing that happens. So when we talk about crying, when a person cries, this is what's chashuv over here. So crying is my emotion, and it's a manifestation of my emotion from the world of Bina, right? Which is the nukva. There's crying. I explained on Sunday that dima is a lashon of damua, mixture of toivera, a mixture of mixture, just a mixture. Where there's complete echad. That's what dimua means. So if my reaction is crying, so that means that I'm so overwhelmed with the emotion that I can't even sort it out. And being that I can't sort it out, my response is a tear, which usually is not the right thing. You got a hold of yourself. On the other hand, shari demois leninalo, because then I'm coming to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ezehu avoda she belev zutzvila. If your avoda is with your seichel, some people daven like that. I hate it. I can't stand watching it. Like what is that a seichel? Is avoda she belev? The concept of tefillah, dalif lebiat ha'oibed, is to crawl back to a place of bina. And Ezo Avodah Shebelev Zu Tefillah Shkriyashba cerebral. But we're working to a place of Lev, Vashivais Elevecha, working to a place of Tshuva, working to a place of, you know, in parentheses, I was talking to somebody the other day about his doubts in Emunah. You know, if God is this, why do you do that? If God did that, why do you do this? You know, like, okay, you know, you can write a book, and many people have, you know, the Shach Levatari of Emunah. But he says to me, like, you don't seem, you know, like you're answering me, you don't seem bothered by it. Like, you know, his like, if I, you know, stop a young bufutzav anyway, like, you know, if I could prove to you that there's no Torah is not Sinai, will you take off your yarmulke right now? Like, it's like, you know, like, how much gaiva can you have to think that just because you don't understand that it isn't? Like it just like the video of it just bothered me. But I said something, and when I heard myself say it, I said, "Whoa, that's pretty good." I said that, you know, like I give a shared tillim almost every night here, right? So it's like, what are you seeing from what did David HaMelech do with the Tehillim? What he did was, like, he took something which was philosophical, and Biyodeva, like, who understands really HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like Avraham Avinu understood it, like Moshe Rabbeinu understood it, who understood really. But David HaMelech, like, it was a different thing. David HaMelech, so when we're talking about Hashgacha Pratis, we're not talking about a philosophical reality that a God controls everything in the world like a big computer. What we're talking about is that David HaMelech noticed extremely intimate involvement of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his life, and him with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was every minute. Everything that he saw, everything that he thought, everything that his wife said, everything that his business, everybody who tried to kill him, everybody who tried to help him, everyone who gave him covet, everyone who gave him Messiah, this is all Hashem. So it wasn't the Emunah wasn't about philosophy. It was beyond that. The Emunah was about intimacy. It was at a point of lave. So like I don't even know what the right word is, spiritual, but a person's holding. It's not about all time. I have to think I'm doing this mitzvah because Hashem. I don't have to think about it. Like this is I'm having a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bring my wife a present. I don't have to give a whole. If you do, then it's a pretty sad situation. That's like I just want to give you hana. So I want to do what you want. I want to be Mekayim your Ratzon. That's what a husband, a wife, husband, child. I just want to buy you. You have to hold yourself back from giving your kids gifts. It's not good. You have to. It's a place of lave. It's a place of bina, and it's a place of dima, and that's what dima is. That's what dima is all about. Just to show you before we just take a few minutes of the words of the Devorah. But I was remembering this that in Tilum Samach Vav. Famous kapitel on Natzeh Shir Mizmar Haril Elohim Kol Haaretz. David HaMelech speaks about how the earth, Zamru Kvod Shmos, the earth says the Tehillah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and goes through, if you learn it carefully, goes through the different miracles of the Bria, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Hashkacha Pratis. But again, Hashkacha Pratis, so when there was Kriyas Yamsuf, so like what everyone say, wow, that's Mamash Hashkacha Pratis. Like real hashkacha pratis, that the water split just now. That's not the pshat. The hashkacha pratis. The pshat, the hashkacha pratis, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with us the whole way. We didn't even realize He was even with us through Mitzrayim. He was with us through the Beptesh Shari Tuba. He's with us in the Midbar. He's with us even though the Mitzrayim are here. And now He's splitting the Yam for us. That's what hashkacha pratis is. All right. Hashkacha pratis is hashkacha pratis. It's like windy. No, it's a deep thing. So David HaMelech said. One of the miracles. Let's take a look at the flies of Elikim. It says Hafach Yom LeYabasha is one of the piyutim we say on Pesach, if you say piyutim. Hafach Yom LeYabasha. He's turned the water into dry land. Banahar Yavru Biragel. And in the Nahar, which is probably talking about the Yarden at this point. Like Hayarden Yisrael Lacher Banahar Yavru Baragel, we were able to walk on the wet land by foot as if it was Hafach Yom Liyabasha. Sham Nismacha Bay, and it was there in that dry land water that we had Simcha in him. Sham Nismacha Bay. Says the Targum here. Hafach Yoma Desoif, that's Yam Suf. Yoma Desoif Liyabeshta. Binahar Yordana, in the Nahar Yarden, Avaru B'nai Yisrael Birag Lehain. Oivil Yasai Latur Kutshe Tamon Nechte B'Memra. That's a lot of words for Sham Nismachavai. I'm translating for you. Ovil. What does ovil mean? Hovala. Ovil Yasain Latur Kutshe Tamon Nechte B'Memra. So, let me explain this. Okay, who was Barbara Center last week? What does Yovel mean?
What do you mean? The word Yovel?
That's a hard question. But what does the word Yovel mean?
Rashi says it's a horn, right?
What?
Rashi says it's a horn, I think.
A horn. Okay. So what does Yovel mean? Jubilee.
Jubilee.
That means they don't know, right? What does it mean? It's supposed to be something, right? So, Yovel, what does it mean? So, let me just read these words over here. Avru b'nei Yisrael b'rag lehain oivil yasain latur kutshe tamon nechte haaretz nasan yevula. So Yovel lashon yevula. Another place you find in Chumash is Yabeles in Parshas Tzaras. Not so Gishmak. Person sees a Yabeles, a wart.
Produce.
Peiros.
Peiros, produce.
So it's called Peiros. Yovel, Peiros. Yovel is the Peiros before they become Peiros. Yibul in Kol HaTorah is the produce before it becomes fruit. Ha'aretz Nasna Yevula is the very first manifestation of that which is under the ground coming over the ground. So Yovel is going back to the world of Bina. Yovel is before it became a fruit. After it becomes a fruit, it's a fruit. Pri, Lashon, Parach. Para Adam. Whenever you see Pei Reish, it means it's already sprouting. Para Adam, Hefker, it's going, who knows where it's going. If you don't tame it, it's going the wrong way. But Yibul is the first, in Hilchos Mitzayra, for example. So Yabeles is the very, very first. What is the whole Tzaras thing? Is you see an outer manifestation of something's going on inside. But it's all Motzi Ra, Mitzayra, Motzi Ra. That which is inside is coming outside. The first thing that you see, take a look in Parshas Tazria, is Yabeles. Yabeles is Yevula, Yovel. Why by Yovel does everything go back to its odors?
What's left to do with 50?
It's a restart.
Restart. Tshuva. Yovel hi Tshuva. The world gets complicated. This grew, that grew. I bought this, you bought that. I planted this. My tree's going into your garden. My roots are over here. Your roots are. Everything is very complicated and sorted out. Yovel, the great equalizer. Yovel, Dror Yikra Levei Nivas. Right? That's Dror Yikra L'Horos. Dror is a type of freedom, which is let's just go back, just go back to where we started from. Avodim, you go home. This is your karka. This is my karka. Before Hillel came and complicated again with the crucible, but my money, your money, it's all we become kibbutzniks for a year, and then you go. This is even stronger than Shemitah. Shemitah is where I'm taking mine and I'm being mafkir. Yovel is saying I'm not even mine. So every Yovel. Once in a Yovel, so a person, it's interesting, we don't know when Yovel is nowadays. We know what Shlit'a is, we don't know what Yovel is, that's why I don't keep Yovel. But it's as a Madrega. Yovel is a Madrega that Mashiach comes, across some drawer bars, and then you blow the shofar. It's a matzav of going back to who we are, to what we are, to where we came from, and figure out again where we're going. Refresh, restart, refresh the screen, right? Just reboot. That's that button. That button which you just have to push every once in a while. Just start it fresh, right? My computer, it says, do you want to save? Do you want me to open up the windows that you had open? No! This is the whole point why I'm shutting you down. I want everything closed.
You see all those words, reset, reboot, restart. It's not start or set. It's exactly what I'm saying. It's like you're going back to it.
Right, let's read. Yovel. Va'aretz Nasna Yevula. So here, it's time to stop already, so I'm just everything we get to the time already. But I'm giving this long introduction, so to speak, or this hesper, because I'm trying to understand two lines in the Talmud Torah, which I believe we will understand at the end of this. But the Targum says here, Hafach Yam Yabasha. What happened? Work it through. Hafach Yam Yabasha. Before Hashem created the world, so there was no Yam, there was no Yavesh. That was only the days of creation, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Yikavu Hamayim. Here there's water, here there's earth. It's a good thing, Baruch. It's like it's a good thing that we have tzaras when the water goes onto the earth. And then you get you have tsunamis and things like that. But basically, it's good. The water comes till here, stops somehow. High tide goes a little further, but stops. Doesn't drown Tel Aviv, Baruch Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sorted out. But if you would go back to an earlier place before the Bria, then just like there's Tzadik V'Raloi, just like Zdoinos Nasakas Chuyos, Mayim and Aretz were all the same thing. Toyu Vavayu. Toyu Vavayu is the cluster before it was sorted out. Everything was one thing. So what happened by Kriyas Yamsuf was David HaMelech, the tzaddik in the Gaon. What happened by Kriyas Yamsuf? For a moment we went before the Brias HaOlam, and all of a sudden, Hafach Liyam Liyabasha. There was no difference between Yam and Yabasha for us. Get it? Like, it was all the same thing. Yam, Yabasha, here you can walk, there you can't walk. That's all in the Bria of Breda. That's not in the place. We're above that. So they became above it. So that's what he says over here. Well, listen to the words of the Targum. I copped this when we're doing the Tillim. Hafach Yama Desoif Liyabeshta. B'Nahar Yordana Nachamol Avru B'nei Yisrael B'Raglehai. Oy Vil Lashon Yovil. We went back to its original state. That's what Yovel means. Go back to its original state. Ovel Yasain. He brought us back. Latur Kudshe, to the place of Kedusha. Taman Nechte B'Memra. And from there we were happy. B'Memra, says the Mefarshim, with the Asar Mamaris Nivra Ha'olam. We look at the world differently. But like sometimes the nest is the nest that we want, and we don't want to be in Nissim all the time. We want to be a Teva. But the nest that we want is that, what is a nest? A nest is that at some moment, Doim Hashemesh, Hafach Yam Liyabasha. Teva is not what it needs to be. And this is the Bechina of Leiv Hashem. And this is, we talked about earthquakes, we talked about on Sunday. The whole Indian of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Moirid Dema V'Rada Ha'aretz. What does that mean? Because a Dema is is Bina. Your heart cries. Your brain doesn't cry. Your heart cries. So if your heart cries, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol is Moirid Dima. And now when he's working us completely before the Bria, V'Rada Adama, and now that which is like the most solid thing that we can rely on, which is the earth, shakes. Maridima V'Rada Ha'aretz. So, like all of a sudden, last month, Mount Everest isn't as tall as it used to be. Like it's like the most. What's the insurance company? The Rock of Gibraltar. Like the Rock. Like that's what we could be samech on. The Rock. You can't be samech on a rock. You can't be samech even on Mount Everest because it's there. It was there. That's why I'm climbing it. It's nothing. You can't be samech on anything anymore because HaKadosh Baruch Hu can take the world before the world of Bina. And why does he do this? Just to chazer over what we said Sunday, and then I wish you good Shabbos. Why does he do this? Why does he do this? Mibnei Tzaras and Shel Yisrael. So Tzaras and Shel Yisrael, Klal Yisrael somewhere is Tsar. There's one Yidel even someplace but Tsar. So what's going on there? That's Midas Hadin. So for a moment to save this Jew, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to go beyond Midas Hadin. Once there's no Midas Hadin, the earth isn't solid any longer because Din is Teva, Likim is Teva. So now the earth shakes. But because I can't go with Din, I have to go with Rachamim. So ironically, like the Reidas Hadama is a simon of Rachamim. It's a simon of Rachamim. But it's not a Rachamim that we want all the time. That's why I always say you're not supposed to daven for Rachamim. You want things to work right up Teva. It's not, it's Klal Yisrael even in the midbars. I'm going to speak with the man. We want to actually farm, things and grow cucumbers in the man. It's hard because then you're dealing all the time before the world appeared. If man is falling down, lechem min hashamayim. You're before the world appears. So the avodah for Shabbos is to be able to do tshuva and tefillah, and to climb with tshuva and tefillah above the world of Pirut to a place where shari demoyes loininalu, a place where there's no toiv v'ra, a place where it's like tzaddikim like Reb Tzadok HaKohen or Reb Nachman Breslover. There was some misunderstood on the Esdaiti because they spoke about crawling back to the place of an Avera and being misakin that the Ra is actually toiv. So the people that didn't understand it, maybe they should have been more careful how they said it, I don't know, but the people that didn't understand it would say, what are you making Ra into toiv? It's almost like, doing Avera on purpose just so I could have a tikkun klali. But it's obviously not the pshat. The pshat is that these people, they were such, these people, I would say Reb Tzadok, Reb Nachman, Reb Kook, that they were able to go back to a world of before the world and see, it was Reb Kook looking at all the Chilonim and saying, beautiful? Like, isn't that wonderful? Like it's all about going back to a world of restart, and being able to see it from there, where there is no toiv, there is no ra, there is no people that make this choice. There's no bechira chavshis. It's not the world that we live in, but it's there. And if you could start from there, so then Klal Yisrael is a hope, and the only hope. I think it's the only hope that we have, is to be able to like you talk about achdus, like it's so frustrating that everybody hates each other the way they do. It's just so ridiculous. And here in the Makkah of Kedusha, it's Yisrael, you see it the strongest, you know. But the only hope there can be is not to try to make friends with everybody. I don't think. But the only hope is to realize that we all came from one neshama before the period. And at the end of the day, okay, you went this way, I went that way. Like there's a period, but if we can climb up here, shari demois leininu. So it's about the lathe. It's about the lathe. Two levavos could come together, whereas two gufim can't necessarily. So that's the avodah bina. Okay. Yom Tov, Shabbat Shalom.